Hi, this is my review of AMP Adventures. AMP Adventures is a collection of adventures for the AMP Year 1 RPG. If you want to see my review of that RPG, click on the link in the description below. AMP Adventures also contains a few variants and augmentations to modify the different powers presented in the AMP Year 1 RPG. Well, let's talk about the quality of the PDF. The quality is good. You have your bookmarks, you have some illustrations, you have good organization. Everything is pretty good. However, there are some things that I would like to mention. First, I think there were two of the illustrations that didn't exactly match the description of the presented in the adventure, and there are also some errors. So, for example, in the adventure team player, page 23. In the first paragraph, the first column at the last paragraph, listen to this. While a third seems to be talking to someone. Did you hear that? So there's a repeat of to be talking. And in the adventure, the attack of the boss, I think there was also an error there, but I don't remember exactly where. But despite that, the quality is good. And well, let's talk about each adventure. First, we have 5 days of Asphalt. This adventure features a couple of merit potential amps, that is, humans who have powers but aren't aware of it yet. And they have a son named Toby. And Toby is quite powerful as an amp, powerful if not a bit unstable. He has the power to control and manipulate fire. He actually manages to save his parents from an accidental fire. However, he's quite unstable, so almost anything that scares him makes him go out of control, and he's a potential hazard. So depending on the character's affiliation, there's a very cool way in which each adventure integrates the different affiliations. I will talk about that at the end of this review. Well, depending on their characters, on the character's goal, they will probably end up escorting Toby to a safer place, safer according to their affiliations. However, they will have to solve some conflicts, maybe without violence, or probably quite violent at the end of the adventure, because humans that don't understand Toby's abilities and powers, and other amps that have plans for Toby, could get in the way, and they will have to serve as sort of like an escort service or a protection service for Toby to get him from one place to another. And Toby himself is quite he's a bit of a walking hazard, because he can't control his powers, so he's going to get a bit out of control, and maybe even damage the surroundings or even the characters themselves. So that's two things I have to keep in mind: that the threat from outside and from the inside. Well, let's talk about the next adventure, which is Team Player. In Team Player, there's this soccer player, a young girl by the name of Savvy. And Savvy is an amp that uses her powers to win soccer matches, which is basically cheating. And the characters have to protect her from a group of men in black who want to capture her, and well, I'm not going to be quite humane in the way they're going to treat her. So this is also sort of like a protection and defend mission. And by the end of the adventure, if the characters, despite their characters' effort to handle things smoothly, there will be conflict, because Savvy's old man is a sort of like a very powerful mutant, and he's going to attack both characters, and the men in black, he's not going to be able to distinguish friend from foe, and so that's going to be a very interesting conflict in which the player characters could end up hurting the Savvy's father. Now let's talk about the attack of the boss. The attack of the boss is a very interesting adventure, because the characters have to face off against this swarm of killer bees. But at first they seem like just a random menace, but then the characters will, if they start investigating and finding the reason behind the attacks, they're going to see that there is a method to this bee madness. And the one controlling the bees isn't actually a villain in the normal sense of the word. You could think of him as a sort of like misguided vigilante, because his victims are are not exactly good people. And the characters may interact with one of the staple NPCs of Ampere 1, which is Critter. And so this is a very interesting way in which the characters can become part of the major plotline of the AMP storyline, and they could end up solving this adventure in a pacific or peaceful way. Now, then we have the evolution of Apex. The evolution of Apex has to do with a company, Future Tech, that takes amps into their custody for research purposes. However, they take this amp called Apex, and it's not really clear if she was taken against her will or not. So she was rescued by a couple of other amps that are actually related to her. And this corporation, Future Tech, hires the characters to rescue Apex. But what the characters don't know is that the Future Tech guys don't really trust the player characters, and they're going to backstab them if they get in their way. So this is an adventure that is quite interesting because the characters could pick a side, and the adventure will unfold or develops according to what the characters choose. However, Future Tech is quite an evil corporation. They're probably going to end up backstabbing them regardless. It's up to the game master. And then we have the White Knight. The White Knight is a pretty cool adventure. It's like a modern conflict between two necromancers, but it feels more like a paladin against a necromancer, because there are two amps that have powers that have to do with interacting with the dead, and one of them is pretty much a modern example of a necromancer, and the other one feels like a paladin. That's the White Knight, and she's a very powerful NPC, and the characters will end up teaming up with her if their goals are the same. There probably are, because she's going to be trying to protect them from the different zombies and spirits that this necromancer called the Vol'dun is going to send after them. So the characters, whether they like it or not, they're going to become involved in this conflict between the Vol'dun and the White Knight. That's pretty cool. And then you have Scalpel's Edge. Scalpel's Edge seems quite gritty and grim and somewhat gory as an adventure. Everything starts with a band that drops a couple of corpses on the road, and when they examine those corpses, they find out that they have some missing organs, but there are no marks or lacerations on the surface of the body, so it's like somebody teleported those organs out of the body. And the characters are going to be investigating exactly how this is related, who is responsible for taking those organs, and they will end up meeting another amp that seems like the culprit at first, because it's an amp that has the ability to cut through things without scratching the surface. So it's kind of like a sort of like a phasing or teleportation of what's inside things. But the real culprit is a doctor. He's called Dr. Scalpel, and he's a serial killer, and the characters will probably end up fighting against him at the end. Then you have Academic Conspiracy. Academic Conspiracy has that X-Men feel to it, because it's about an academy where they are trying to integrate amps into the school program, and the player characters are going to see that this school is somewhat harassed by the news and the reporters trying to see what's going on inside. But then things will start getting more and more sinister as a group of mysterious men being led by an amp try to kidnap a particular student. And the characters will find out that it's actually the school principal that is involved in this nasty affair, and he's thinking of a particular student as a potential test subject or research material, and the characters will end up in conflict with these individuals that are working behind the shadows of the school. Well, let me tell you what I think of this collection of adventures. I think that it's great that they included as a bonus the different ways to augmentations, and then there's even a couple of drawbacks, I think. I don't remember exactly on how you can modify your amp powers. And I also think that what makes this collection quite excellent it's that there's a lot of advice on how to handle things if things go out of rails, so to speak. So, for example, if the player characters choose something completely different or original from the path that the game master expects them to take, this adventure provides a lot of tips on how to develop the adventure, a lot of hooks depending on the affiliations, or if the characters are unaffiliated to any of the major power groups. There's a lot of information here on how to handle that, on how to get the characters into an adventure, how to handle the different things, the random elements, the chaotic developments that may arise during the course of the adventure. So that with this collection of adventures, it's like they want to make sure that you run the perfect adventure. So there's a lot of attention to detail here. I really can't find a major downside to this collection. Maybe some of them are a bit too thematic in that the sense that if you're looking for different types of adventures, you could feel a bit disappointed in a sense. So, for example, you have 5 days of Asphalt, which is escort and protect. You have team player, which is protect, and those adventures have to do with protecting a younger person. And then you have academic conspiracy, which also is about protecting a younger person, or kids. And then you have well, those are basically it, but they feel too, I don't know, too related as such. So they are. It's good if you are running an adventure or a campaign where the player characters are kind of like protectors of the young amps that are arising. But some that are looking for a more mixed experience, it could feel like those adventures are too similar. But in my personal opinion, I think this is an excellent collection. It provides you with a bonus of ways to modify amp powers. You also get a lot of different storylines with many tips and advice on how to run them. There you get some pretty charismatic enemies and allies. The White Knight is an incredible ally in my opinion. Critter is here, and the villains such as Dr. Scalpel and the Voldoon, they all feel pretty thematic, and I don't know, what would you say, they have a pretty strong character to them. So I highly recommend that you get this collection of adventures. Just remember that I think this collection works pretty good for if your theme is about protecting young people. Well, thanks for watching my review. If you have any comments or questions, please let me know. See you later.